Hello everyone, welcome back to Helix Jump 3D tutorial. So this is tutorial 2 and we'll see how to create the first script of our game to control our shaft, and then we'll look at physics in Unity, and then we'll make the ball movement. So that would be what we'll see today. Let's jump right into Unity. Okay, so yesterday we had these folders in our assets. So let's open script and then right click and press on create and then C# script. Okay, so now I'm going to name the script our shaft controller. Okay, so Visual Studio is something that comes with an extension of Unity, and it is really helpful, so you should get Visual Studio for Unity. Okay, so now our Visual Studio is open, and this will be how default script looks which we create in Unity. So let's go ahead and remove the use system collections and generic, because we only need that when we use lists. So, and also removing the comments. Okay, so now what we are trying to do is, uh, like we see our mouse in our game, so that is only how our finger works in a way in Android. So we are going to use that to control our shaft. So let's start. So now what we'll do is we'll create two variables. So first would be a public float rotation speed, and let's give it somewhere around 250 f. For now we use f when we are using float values, so that it knows it is a float and not a double. And then we'll use a private bool hold. Okay, so let's see. So first will be, if we get our mouse button down, so we do if input dot get mouse button down, 0. Then what we'll do is we'll make hold equals to true. So, and then else if input dot guess mouse button up, 0, then hold equals to false. So what this is going to do is that if we get our mouse button down 0, that is if we do the left click, then the hold becomes true. And if we get the mouse button up, that is if we stop holding the button down, then the hold will become false. So we need this because we only want to do the action when our mouse is down. Then if we are holding, then what we'll do is transform dot rotate, and we don't want any rotation in X, so 0. And then here it will come what we'll do when our mouse is holding with our mouse, so let's leave that for now. And then 0 again for the Z axis, and after this let's put a colon. So here what we want to do is that we want to get our input from our mouse, and then how much ever we are getting the horizontal axis, that much we are going to change our rotation of the Y axis. Input dot get axis, then this will be our mouse X, and we'll multiply it with our rotation speed into time dot delta time. So this is what will give our rotation, but we'll have to keep this negative, which you'll see in a second. Let's first give it positive. I'll show you what happens and then we'll give the negative one. So let's open Unity. Okay, so now our Unity is open. Let's open up our level, and then in level 1 we'll drag and drop our script. Okay, so let's see what happens. Yeah, you see, when we are going in the positive direction, the rotation is happening that ways, and when we are going in the negative direction, the rotation is happening on the opposite side. So what we have to do is we have to make it negative. So let's put this minus, save the script, and let's check now. Perfect. So now you see we are getting the rotation like we want. So this is our first script, which is now complete. Okay, so now that our script is working, let's look into physics and Unity. So come here, edit, project settings, and then physics. Okay, so here you see that our default material is none, and then our bounce threshold is 2. So what we want is a ball that keeps on bouncing over these pads. So let's see how we'll do that. So first of all, we'll have to add colliders in all of these pads so that our ball doesn't passes through it. So let's select all of our pads. I do this by clicking on one of it and going to shift and then clicking again, and then we'll add component, mesh collider. So there are different types of colliders. For us, mesh collider is the best because with it we directly get our colliders in the shape of our mesh and we don't have to edit our colliders. So now that that is done, let's save it first and then right click and 3D object, sphere. Now our sphere is loaded. Let's bring it up. Let's look at our sphere first. Okay, zoom out. Let's bring it to 0 and then 80. Let's give it 75. No, let's just bring it up like this. Yeah, somewhere around here looks fine. And then the Z is, let's do it 0 first and then we'll just do this and go to isometric mode and then Q, zoom it in further. Yeah, and now we press W and just bring it, not there, let's bring it forward right in the middle of, yeah, -2 is fine. Okay, so let's rotate the level first a little bit so that it doesn't come in the way of our ball. Yeah, this is fine. Let's give it somewhere around 160. Okay, so let's save this up first, and now we are going to create a material for our ball also right now. So let's come into material and then create and then material, and we'll call it ball. So now first let's put our material in a ball so that it would be visible what we are trying to make the color. I think red would look okay. Yeah. And then let's come to a sphere and then mesh renderer, and then we are going to cast shadows off. Yeah, this looks nice now. Okay, so one more thing that I'm thinking is that we should change the direction of a light a little bit because it looks like it is a bit dark. Let's rotate it further. Yeah, this this angle looks good. So let's save it, close our lights, and then sphere. Let's just name it ball. Yeah. Okay. So now that we have a sphere collider also with us, so we want to create a material. First, let's add a rigid body to our ball too, because that is where it controls the gravity and everything. So we do want to use gravity for it, and let's see how it works right now. So it just comes and it falls there and nothing happens. So we are going to change that definitely. So let's go in our materials again and then right click, create, and we'll come to physics material, and we'll name this material Z, comma, bounce. Okay, so the naming is not important, you can name anything. I like to name it in a certain way. So let's give the friction 0. There is some confusion around bounciness about how much we should set it so that the height is always the same after a bounce. So generally people think that 1 is the right bounce combine that we should set, but it is not so. So you should always take the help of forums in Stack Overflow, etc. to take the help in this. So let's see what the net tells us. So this is an answer by Chester Hilly. So the bounce combined should be maximum and the bounciness should be 0.96999 exactly to get the uh, same bounciness every time. So let's copy it, paste it in our bounciness, and then the friction combined would be minimum and the bounce combined should be maximum. So let's save it, come to our ball, we'll put the Z bounce over here and let's save it, and then we'll go to all of our pads and then also let's give the Z bounce material to it so that the friction is minimum in all of these. Let's close it, and now let's see how our ball looks. There. Now you see that we have got a perfect bouncing ball, but still let me show you what would happen if we directly play like this. So here, now you see, so it is still maintaining its height, but because the height was that much, that is why it is bouncing to this much height, and it is also going and falling off. So let's close the falling off first of all. Let's come to a ball and then our rigid body. Let's close this first, and then in constraints we'll come, and we don't want to change the position of x and z, we only want to change the y of a ball, and then we also don't want to change the rotation. So let's freeze all of that, control S, and now let's see. Here, do you see this? So we have got it going out of the way, so now let's see. Okay, so our ball is just fine now. Okay, so now we want to make a script that doesn't make a ball gain that much height. So what we will basically do is that we'll limit its velocity so that it doesn't happen. So let's see how we'll do that. We'll come to our ball, and then we'll add component, and we'll call it ball controller, new script, and the name is going to be ball controller, and then enter to add it. And let's open our ball controller script. Let's just put it in our scripts folder. Okay, now let's start. Let's open it up again. Sorry. Okay, so now let's start coding this also. Okay, now our script is open. Let's remove these comments, and then we'll create a rigid body variable, rigid body RB, and then in our start we'll get this RB equals to get component rigid body, and then in our update we'll do if RB dot velocity dot y. So we are getting the velocity of the y-axis. If that is greater than 10, then and we'll set RB dot velocity equals to new vector 3. We'll create a new vector for this, so we can't just set the y as it is in unity. So we'll set 0 comma 10 comma 0, and let's just comment it. Let's just put a semicolon, and let's see what this does to our game. Okay, so let's check how it looks if we have given 10, and okay, so the 10 didn't work, so we need to reduce velocity even further. Let's check with 7. Yes, let's play it, and yeah, so now we have got a perfect bounce even after falling from heights. Let's see. Okay, yes, so we are getting the same height after every bounce. Okay, so now that we have got the perfect motion for our ball and the perfect control for our shaft, what we are going to do is we are going to make the small effects like the trail of the ball and the splash that occurs when this ball falls that we see in helix jump. So first of all, let's make the trail. So we are going to add component, and then in effects you can find trail renderer. So let's go ahead and select that, and first let's select the material. So keep coming down. So default line or sprites default, any one you can use. So let's use default line, and then the color. So what we want is that the color should start with white, but it should end with red color. So let's select that. Let's pick a color and make it red. Okay, so let's see how this looks right now. Okay, so we are getting a trail, but it doesn't look that good. Let's let it fall and see how it looks. Yeah, so this one is not looking that good. So what we'll do is we'll have to play around with these a little bit. So let's reduce the time first of all. Let's make that 0.4. Let's see how this comes. Yeah, So this is fine. The trail is coming, the length of the trail and the time for which it stays is okay. Emitting is good. End cap vertices. So let's make this somewhere around 20 and let's see how our shape comes out to be now. Yeah, so we are getting this shape now, which looks pretty good. So these are some things that you'll just have to play around and find out what works best. So I'm just not happy with that shape that comes for a second. So we'll just see what is doing that. Let's decrease this a little bit and see what happens. Yeah, so there is definitely some change from this. Let's make it 0.1 and see. Yeah, so it is looking good, but it is not long enough, and this has made it even worse. So okay, so after debugging it a little bit, I think that this looks good now, and let's just copy this because whatever you do in play mode, that is not directly applied. So let's just copy this component and then let's stop the play mode and then paste component values, and then let's just control S and play it again. And yeah, this looks good. Come down. Yes. Okay. So now this is looking good. Now we are going to make the splash. For that, we are going to have to make a new folder for our images because we are going to spawn an image where we want that to come. So let's go create a folder. Let's name it images, and this will have all of our images and also our UI stuff. So now then let's import new asset, and I'll just go and take this image, which I think would look pretty good. So after that we'll have to come to texture type and we'll have to do it sprite 2D and UI. Then we'll have to apply it so that we get it like this, and then we are going to have to create an 3D object which should be a plane. Yes, and now in this plane we are going to have a new material and we are going to call that material splash. And then in this we'll come to a base map, and this is going to be our splash image, and we are going to put it into our we have to put it in a plane. So let's go and put it in a plane. So right now you see that we are not getting it completely transparent. So come to surface type and from opaque make it transparent. So now we are getting a red splash, and let's come to a plane. We'll call this splash, and we'll go to our models, and first of all let's make this 0, 75, and this will also be 0. So let's increase this a little bit. So we are eventually going to make it 0, but we are just using this right now to get to see how it will look and how much big we want it. So let's zoom in a little bit, and first let's make this isometric. Yeah, and then we are going to move it. So press W, then move. This is going to be right below our ball, and I think this looks pretty good. So the splash is coming out just fine. Nothing to change here. Let's just see if this does anything. Or the metallic map. Yeah. Let's make it dark like so. And then save it. Now this is going to be a splash prefab. So let's just make it 0 and 0. And let's just give it a even 0.1.8, 0.18 and 0.18. Okay, so let's now make it a prefab. You just drag and drop it to make it a prefab, and now we don't need this anymore, so we are going to delete it. So now what we want to do is whenever a ball contacts any point in our mesh, so what we want to do is we want to instantiate the splash. So let's go into a script and do that right now. So now we make a public game object and we'll call it splash. So this is a game object that we'll instantiate, and now we are going to make on collision enter. Okay, now so to get the contact point on collision, we'll use contact point and we'll call it contact equals to collision dot contact, and we want to get the contact point at 0th location. Okay, so now we have our contact. We want to get the position of this contact, so we'll use vector3 position equals to contact dot point, and this will give us the position of the contact point. And then we also need quaternion rotation, because when we instantiate we also require rotation, so we use new quaternion, and we just want 0 because we don't want any rotation. And after this let's instantiate. So game object splash clone equals to instantiate, and then we'll use our splash game object and we'll give position and rotation, and this would instantiate it. And after we instantiate it, we also need to destroy it. So we use destroy and then splash code and then 2f. So we are going to destroy it after 2 seconds. Okay, so now let's play and see what happens. Okay, so there is an error. So this is an unassigned reference exceptions. Okay, so we forgot to assign the objects in our script. So first of all we need to assign the splash game object, which is this, and then we are going to save it. Let's close this up also, and now let's see. Okay, so we see that it is instantiating, but also that it is not moving along with our level, and also it seems that some of them are below our surface, which we don't want. We want them to be on the surface. So let's see how we can change that also. So I think we'll have to increase the Y a little bit. so we'll do that too. So let's go ahead and first of all let's just add a new vector 3, and it is going to be 0 and 0.5f and 0. So this is it. I think it should come up correctly, and then we are going to add the game object level also. So, and here we'll give level dot transform, so that the object which we are instantiating, it becomes a child of level, so that it moves along with it. Now let's see, let's open this up, let's assign the level here, let's save it, and now let's see. Okay, so two more things we have to do. First of all, we had this mesh collider, we don't need this here, and let's also put the car shadows off, save this, and now let's play and see. Okay, so 0.5, as you can see, is a little bit much, so we are going to decrease it. So let's keep it 0.125, and let's check now. Okay, so as you could have told, it is still a little bit too much, and yeah, so that is a little bit too much, so let's go and fix that also. So I think what we are going to do is, let's make it 0.25. Yes, now let's check it. Okay, so 0.025 is also too less, so we are going to give it 0.1. Let's try with this. Okay, so now that we have got our ball movement correct and the ball splash also correct, let's go ahead, and 0.2 is our value. So now we want to let's just check one. Yeah, so 0.2 is the correct value. So now what we want to do is, we want to make the win and lose condition. So let's go ahead, and before that we are going to create an empty, because we also want to make the camera movement. So let's do that first. So let's set the position 0. Now we are going to name it borders, and after that I'm going to right click and add an object cube, and let's just go to the upper view and see a cube, and then we are going to press R and scale it up. Let's scale it all the way up, and we want to set it 7. So now 7, y is also 7, and y 7, and then z is also 7. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so now we want to reduce the y scale, so let's put it 0.5, and let's move the cube upwards. We want to get it to the first position, so 74, just a tad below it. Then we are going to copy it and just -5, and copy it again and -5, and -5, and we just want to repeat this process till we reach the last pad. Copy and paste, -5, copy and paste, then -5, and what will happen is, after we have completed this, what we can do is we can just set the camera's Y position as same as these border cubes, because we are going to use the collision or the trigger that the ball does to these borders, and we are going to set the position of the camera there, so our camera can move along with our ball. And we can also use these collisions for a progress bar, which we'll see in the next tutorial, and I'll tell about it further in this tutorial. So now let me just complete this over here, just 2 more left, and we are done. Okay, so the cube position is 74, so our camera should be 5 above it. So let's see, 79, yeah, we've got the position right. So now I'm going to rename all of our cubes to border, and I'm also going to set is trigger, because we don't want the ball to collide with them and we don't want to see it. So I've just removed the mesh renderer, and then I'm going to add a tag enemy and select all the cubes, press shift, and then tag them enemy. Now I'm going to rename them border, and that's about it. So now let's come to our script. We already have on collision enter, so now we'll make on trigger enter. So now in our trigger enter, we are going to put if object other dot game object, sorry, other dot game object dot compare tag, and we have just given the tag enemy. So sorry, the tag is border, and then camera dot main dot transform dot position. We're going to transform the position of our main camera to a new vector 3, and just copying this, we paste it dot x, and then we want to change the y, so we paste it again dot z, because we are not going to change the x and z, and for the Y position I want it to be same as the other game object, so I'll just use other.game object other.transform. Let me just paste this, other.transform.position.y, and I think this should make our camera move like we want. So let's go ahead and see that. So let me add the tag border actually. So border, and then select all, press shift, and then border. Now let's play a game and see, and our camera is moving down. So this is what we wanted, but actually we wanted to like animate when it comes down and not just change the position abruptly. So we'll do that. So come to window, go to asset store, and for this we are going to use something called do tween. So if you have seen mathlab, so tween does something like that. So let's search for that, do tween. So I've already downloaded it, that is why it's coming in gray. So let's open it up and import it. So here you can see import. So I have already imported it once. You can see it. Let me just find it. Okay. So, oh, okay, I'm sorry, it's not in the packages, it's in the plugins and the assets folder. Uh, there should be a folder named Demi Giant. Let me just see it once. Yeah, so we have Demi Giant here. So yeah, so when you import it, actually, let me just show you. When you import it, you have to import everything, including the modules and the images. So I've already imported it, that is why I can't select it again. But when you import it, you have to import all of these modules. So let me just do one thing. Let's go ahead and delete it so I can show you how to import it correctly, because there are 1-2 things more. So I'll just import it again. Let's clear the console, then import, and we are importing everything. So while it's importing, let me tell you more about do tween. So like I was telling, it is like mathlab. So it animates an object between two positions. If we use do move, we also have do rotate and similar functions like that for doing a lot of things. We also have like on complete, so that whenever an animation is complete, we can just change it and do something else. So now this window pop-ups. Let's open this and set up do tween. And you just have to make sure that everything is ticked and apply. So everything is ticked. So now it is saying to reload. File modification detected. So we'll just reload it and then reload it again. Let's ignore this. Okay, so now we can use dg.tweening. So let's use using dg.tweening, and this will let us use all the do tween functions. So here I'm going to set, copy this, camera.main.transform dot do move, and this is what will move our camera. and I'm going to use the same vector, the same position which we used below. We want to move our camera to that position, and we want to take 1 second to do it. So yeah, I think this should do it. Let's remove this line. Let's close the asset show now. We don't need it anymore. And let's play and see if it works. Nice. So as you can see, our camera is now working perfectly. So this is done nicely. Okay. Yeah. So in the next tutorial, uh, we want to see the UI, and for now let's also make the win and lose conditions. So we'll go ahead and level. In win, we'll add a tag finish, because this is going to be a finish pad. Let's save and let's see how we'll do that. So in collision, we'll come here, and if collision dot game object dot compare tag, and if the tag is finish, then we'll do time dot time scale equals to 0. So this will just pause our game in a way. The time stops when it reaches the finish tag. We are also going to use this for our enemy tag. So first let's go ahead and see if it is working properly. Let's test it. Yes. Now the game has really started to look pretty good. Let's see if the finish is working. Just a second. Okay, so as you can see, the time has stopped, and this means that we have already won a game. So now let's just go ahead and do that for our loose pads also. So we already made a tag that was enemy, so we are going to use that. So we are going to do the same thing for now. So let's just select all of our loose pads. I'm going to select one, press shift and select the last one, and I'm going to add the tag enemy. Let's save it and then play. Yes, as you can see, the time has also become 0 over here. So it is working just fine, and we'll also pop up the panel of lose and win over here. So all of that is UI stuff, and in the top we'll write level 1 and also add a progress bar. So all of that we'll see in the next tutorial, and I think that is all that is left. So this is it for the tutorial 2. Thank you so much for watching.